Welcome to the EnVibe Life Conversations podcast with Amy Parker and Cheryl Dunn. By tuning in, you are joining a community that will inspire you to increase balance, wellness, and joy in your life. We will offer expert information and insightful conversations to help us all on our journey to live more in vibe. For more information and articles, remember to also check out our website at envibelife.com. That's EnVibelife.com. We're grateful that you're here. Welcome to EnVibe Life Conversations with Amy Parker and Cheryl Dunn. And today we have a very special guest, one of our listeners, Cara Beth McLeod. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Happy to.
We are so excited that you're here. You are our very first ever episode where we're bringing on one of our listeners who we want you to tell us about your EnVibe life journey. And I know that's a broad subject. So what does it mean to you?
Well, let's see. I almost think I've been listening from the beginning from you guys, because even when I started, I went back and caught episodes that I missed. So
thank you.
Because I just learned something every single time. I just had, even if it was just a little nugget of something. And so, I guess, I don't know. I feel like I've always been on this journey to sort of be the better me all the time. I think that's one of the reasons why the podcast speaks to me, is because I'm never not working on myself and all of the hats that I wear. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about all those hats.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a mom of a teenager. Cheryl and I's, her oldest and my only, started kindergarten together.
Yeah.
Which I can't even believe, because they're about to be drivers.
Her daughter's now about 16.
Yeah. She turned 16 on Monday, actually. I was a teacher at the school where our kids went to elementary school. So I've been a teacher from the very beginning of my career, which I can't even believe is like 23-ish years. I've been in education. I also have kind of early on in my teaching career, I started teaching gifted and talented students. And so that caused me to wear a completely different hat that I wasn't really expecting, but found sort of my vibe in the teaching world. And that's really focused on creativity and higher level learners. And so I journeyed down that path quite a bit. So I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a teacher. I have a chronic health disease. I'm diabetic, and that really shifted a lot of my lifestyle and continues to. So I'm a daughter. What else? I don't know. Yeah.
How long ago were you diagnosed with the diabetes?
I think it's 5 years or so. It started with a massive gallbladder attack that just sort of sparked all of that. They were sending me to a liver specialist. They thought my liver was in trouble. And it all ended up being related. So I actually think I fall in that very narrow, it's never been diagnosed this way, but the more I learn about it, the more I think I fall in that 1.5 diabetic instead of it. So I don't know if y'all know, but there's type 1, type 2, and then there's this like very rare. Well, I don't know if it's very rare. I'm talking like I know.
It is rare because I've never heard of it.
Yeah. So there is a 1.5 version of it, because I think I've always had a little tendencies towards this, because, and I've also just been sort of learning to debunk a bunch of the myths that come with being diabetic. But this is like the first year that I've embraced even talking about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I was, I had it when I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
But then it would be really weird. Like I would take my blood sugar over things that should have spiked it and it wouldn't. So there's those are kind of my indicators of.
So you're not textbook.
I am not textbook, but I don't think there is anybody that is what I'm learning. Yeah. So I don't think there is anybody. That's why I would say, because I fall under many of the things that qualify as both 1 and 2, but I think that's pretty common. It's not a common diagnosis.
That's fascinating.
What are some strategies you're using to help you on your path now that you had this really big life-changing circumstance?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I have not been able to learn how to, I'm sure if I could unlock this secret, I could change the world, which is how to get rid of stress.
You could.
Because it is
the bottle and sell it, you'd be
right.
Really,
I know, right? It's the number one thing that causes problems with my health. And that's hard to avoid in my profession. I mean, it's hard for anyone to avoid.
I think that's such an important point.
So true.
To make. Mm-hmm. Because, to me, I don't know how to phrase it. I'm probably not going to say it right, so forgive it. But diabetes is such kind of a textbook medical condition. There are things you can measure. Your body is having biological changes within it. You go to doctors for certain medication. It's as kind of by the book Western medicine, a condition as you can get. But you're saying it's a lot of other than factors, or how mentally, emotionally, spiritually well you are, completely affect all of those diagnostic metrics.
Yes, I've had to take a year off of teaching before because of my health had gotten so bad that the stress I've heard y'all talk about it before on podcasts, how much stress really affects our organs. And I'm learning, I'm still not great with my language as a diabetic. So I'm sure, there could be a lot of criticism to this, but I'm coming to believe that I don't think it's completely textbook, and that medication is our Western way of slapping a Band-Aid on that.
Yep.
And I've had to be a very big advocate for this medication makes me feel horrible. It may be doing what you want it to do with my numbers, but I have something called diabetic morning sickness. So I am nauseous and sick every single morning.
Oh, wow.
Which is really hard to do when you've got to be somewhere when it's still dark outside.
Yeah.
So a slow morning is a good way for me to start. I don't get a slow morning. I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Exercise is super important. 5 o'clock in the morning doesn't really lend to great exercise time. And then by the time I get home, I'm so drained and wiped, because in addition to teaching just being hard, teaching gifted kids is really different because their emotional and mental capacity is very different and intense. And so even though I teach smaller groups of children, they can literally zap all the energy out of me, which I think every teacher identifies with. But I didn't realize how much the gifted head really seeps into my energy.
I almost think too, it's like that's every class period of your day, not just the class period that has the more challenging kid in it. It's every class period for you.
Right.
It's interesting. It's like, also, I've discovered this the last week. I was teaching a course and I was zapped, almost like had the flu sort of feeling. And the more tired, the more my body hurt, the more I didn't have a clear, you're going to understand this because you listen to our podcast. I didn't have a clear energetic boundary. So I was taking on all the people that I was working with and people that were coming into my studio were kind of penetrating me to where my exhaustion level at the end of the day was 10 times more than just a regular work day for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I cannot, on a Friday night, I cannot go anywhere in public. I can't go to a restaurant, particularly if it's noisy. Like there's certain places we know where I can go, but I don't have the, I'm on sensory overload and
can't take it.
Can't take it.
Can't take it.
So you're going to think I'm crazy for saying this. I love everything you're saying so much.
Well, I can relate.
And because one of the big things you're expressing is a self-awareness of like your whole being and realizing that certain things work for it and don't work for it. I mean, like when you started, before Cheryl even started talking about the energy, I was going to say, like, is this your classroom? Can we look around here and see if we can set up some boundaries and strategies with you to cleanse the space and help, protect yourself a little bit? I mean, it's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I've had kids in here today that aren't normally in my classroom, and the energy that's in here is very different than it is in the regular classroom. So they come in and they're like, I love it in here. I love all the colors. I love all all the things. And that's very purposeful because of the type of student that I work with. It would not be this way if I was a regular
mainstream type of
general ed teacher.
Okay. Well, let's go there. We haven't gone off this deep end on a podcast yet, but hey, so we haven't on a podcast yet talked about things like Palo Santo and different things that can clear your space energetically. It might be, even if you don't bring that into the school, because it can smell a little odd, although maybe a Palo Santo candle or something like that. I mean, sage will do it too, but sage has a very strong smell. So I really
might scare people.
Yeah, I really like Palo Santo.
Palo Santo doesn't.
But that's one I don't know.
Home on a Friday, or even every night in your home, maybe doing an energy cleanse. And on that Friday, it might be a really nice idea, or, I'm just thinking of my Cheryl's candles from shock therapy, or, there are different things like that might be able to just reset you on the weekend.
You know what I do sometimes, since we're going there on this podcast, when I've had a session with somebody that when I walk back into my office and I'm like, just drained, I can feel it's something I don't want to take on. There's this spray, and I'll put it in put it somewhere for us to see it. I'll spray it on my hand, and it's like an oil, and I'll just inhale it, and then just kind of do this cleanse, like I'm brushing it over my body without actually physically touching my body. I'm just kind of touching my energetic body, and that it like resets me to know that I'm safe, all is well. I'm not taking on their stuff.
This is so much fun.
I know.
Okay. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, I had to lean over and get a pen so I could start writing.
No, here's the thing. This is why we do so much podcast. This is exactly why this podcast started. We spent so many years of Cheryl and I having this exact same kind of conversation with each other. And then coming back and saying, oh my goodness, that really made a difference. Or here, listen to this or try that.
So you guys, on Fridays, after I listen and I get home, I start to tell my husband all of this, and I can tell he's like, whoa.
He's like, whoa.
That is too woo for weird. Me. I can't, So I'm always, Cheryl knows, because sometimes I text her. I'm like, I need to know more about this.
Okay. And here are two other things. And I know I've talked about this on the podcast is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think he is my guru. And
there's going to be a
biology of belief, that one?
No, that's the biology of belief is
Bruce Lipton
being superhuman.
She's going to get the book.
Let's hear this.
Yeah.
Here, Becoming Supernatural. We'll link this in the show notes too. We've had it on the podcast so many times. I love it because it really
cool noise.
You know what? Let's just take a pause and we'll edit this.
Yeah, we can edit that out.
That's okay.
No, it's okay. This is easy for us to edit out. We'll just go back to the Joe Dispenza thing. Like we have I don't think it was.
You'll start over with
Everybody say good luck, Miss Nat.
good luck.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we talked about the energy cleansing. I'll start with I know I've talked before about Dr.
Yeah.
Joe Dispenza.
That's where we'll
We
start.
will be serving hot dogs and nachos. I'll see you there.
Is that the classroom next door?
Principal,
Oh, over the loudspeaker?
like it's over the whole school.
Yeah. So it won't go
Such
long.
a happy school.
And last but not least,
Is it elementary?
turn in your Sonic orders for drink on Monday. If you haven't turned that in yet, email Heidi that you want. Happy Friday.
All right, and we'll clap.
Okay,
to
we'll
start
clap
again.
to start again so that they know where to edit.
All right, go ahead. Okay, and so I'm so excited. I know one thing that I have for sure talked about on the podcast before you've seen is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I think, like, I have his book right here. I keep it on my table. Becoming Supernatural is my favorite one because it's where he really talks about energetics and the quantum field, and also how that can you can influence that to even improve your health, which is the field of epigenetics you're getting into. So that's interesting. But the other thing I like about Dr. Joe Dispenza is, and you can, I think, even buy these on iTunes, but I know if you go to his website, you can download them. He has several guided meditations. And like one of them is chakra balancing. And it's about 45 minutes. I would think that on a hard day or on a Friday, if you came home, lit a candle, did that 45-minute chakra balancing, it might completely reset you. And here's what I do. I mean, I'm sure if you asked him, he'd say, sit and, upright and let your spine take everything in. If I'm doing 45 minutes, I have a bad back. We know that. We talk about that all the time. It's too long for me to sit straight. I lie down, I put headphones on, I listen to it. If you doze off, don't even worry about it. Have that reset. And I'd love to hear if that made a difference.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that I've started, and that I could be so much better at, is guided meditations.
I'm terrible at it.
But it makes a difference when I do it. And my husband does it as well. And he actually wears the bracelet where you touch the beads as you go through.
Like a mandala. Yeah. The mandala.
And
I never say that right, but yeah.
When he gets super anxious and he wears the beads. So it's also a good signal to my daughter and I. When we see it on his wrist, we know without him having to have an emotional conversation with us that he's been taking some time for himself and he needed that. So we pull these kind of tools out. We haven't quite gotten the teenager on board with it.
I haven't either. No, my 3 sons think I'm crazy.
It's funny. My youngest, Silas, he'll meditate with me, which is crazy because Caleb's my calm one and Silas is my.
Well, but I would say just by age difference, that sort of mindset teaching started coming around when he kind of started in school. And so we've been doing similar things in the classroom. Like I have these really great deck of cards from this girl that I learned to follow on social media called the Calm Classroom. And she has these beautiful cards where it teaches you different methods of breathing for kids. I mean, it's all stuff we would do in a yoga class maybe, or in a breath class, or just different breaths that we learn. But it's all these different kinds, and it relates it to animals and objects and different things like that, so that kids can get a good visual of what the breath should be like. And I use it all the time when things get wound up in here and I need to recenter the students. I'll pull out my deck of cards and I'll let them pick, and we learn a new kind of breathing.
I love this.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. One of the districts I worked in, we had a peace center. All the teachers had to have a corner or a space that was away from where everybody else was, and there was a bag of tools in there for them to do like breathing exercises, to reset themselves. So it's just interesting that I know a lot about teaching kids that and how hard that is to put into practice for myself.
I love
so
it.
hard to put into practice for yourself.
Yeah.
I still do feel like there's some combination of boundaries and chakra balancing.
Yeah,
for
I
you
agree.
to really
And
help.
one of the reasons why I've moved districts is because I needed new boundaries.
Yeah.
I needed a reset myself.
Totally.
And it's a lot of things that you just learn through life where you go, I never even thought of how this social situation would affect my teaching situation or my career situation or whatever. Right. So
Yeah.
I crossed those boundaries a lot in my daughter's early age, and there were consequences for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hard. Cara Beth used to teach in the same district her child was in, right? So
In
you were
school.
friends with the parents, and then you like me, you knew me as a mother, but then also teacher, you know,
which
and
is
that's
common.
You know,
And I lived in the neighborhood.
lived around the corner from me, occasionally at the studio. So
Would see Cheryl running.
oh,
I would be like, oh, why can't I be more like Cheryl?
you know, that is my
I know. I've heard you say it now. I didn't know that then, but I've heard you say it on the podcast, and I'm like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. People think I have all this time on my hand because they always see me running. I'm like, no, my head just needs that amount.
Now I know she's got some stuff to work out.
Look out, Austin.
Right?
Yeah.
Next time,
Yeah.
just
So
hold
now
out and say, Stacey, leave her alone. No, I'm kidding. Just kidding, Stacey.
Yeah. So now I have a 40-minute drive every day, and that is become very essential in my life to and from, because I listen to books, which I'm a voracious reader. I probably read 3 books a week, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then I listen to podcasts on the way home, and I'm a constant learner. So it feeds that need, that kind of need for me.
You are my people.
Which is also a nice transition for you. Like that from home to work, and then from work to home, you have a transition time, which I have a feeling is pretty helpful.
Yes, very.
My commute is 5 minutes, and I do the exact same thing. Like when I'm starting to get ready in the morning after everyone's left my house, then I can turn on either my podcast or my audiobook. I can continue it in the car so that when I get to work, I'm in a mindset of that podcast or that book. And I make those choices for that's not fictional. That's my Joe Dispenza book, or that's the podcast on health and wellness. It's something to put me in this frame that to set my day in a better place, you know?
Yeah. Then the other thing I'm trying to work really hard on is having diabetes that's all you do is think about. That's all you do. All you think about, everything you put in your mouth, making plans for what's coming later to that you're going to eat. Like, if I make this choice now, how will that affect other choices I make? I mean, that's all I do is think about it. And so sometimes I have to create activities for myself where I'm not spending any time thinking about it, because it can cause a lot of anxiety and depression. And it gets me. I'm a natural redhead, so that's true about that fire in your belly, and that, like, being a ginger is a real thing. Well, all those myths, that's so far in my life, I've learned that's real. And so I can get really angry about all of that stuff. So I have to find ways to release that.
Yeah. To find maybe where the little silver lining, the gratitude, like why we have the hard things in our life, and what we can learn from them. And that's so much easier said than done. It's a life journey, right? It's kind of like it's that constant, like when there's something that spins you in your head into that direction you don't want to go, you're like, okay, I recognize this is here. And what I'm supposed to learn from it is maybe this. And now I'm going to put it on that shelf over there, and I'm going to move forward with gratitude, or we always say that all is well, or, that kind of stuff.
Well, I truly
So hard.
believe, it's hard to say that bad things happen to us for a reason. And so I'm not going to go there, but I will say that I think we're supposed to learn something from everything that happens to us, no matter how bad it is,
That's
or
a good way to
many
put it.
things.
Yeah.
So, that's look for the learning and say, that's, to me, if even you can do that, that's a little bit of a shift in mentality that's slightly more positive.
Right.
What can I learn from this? What can I do? Because, as we believe with the law of attraction, what we put our attention on is going to expand. And so if we put our attention on the bad parts of that disease.
Yeah. I can shame spiral big time. And that's one of the reasons why I don't talk about it with, like, most people don't know that I am diabetic, because I am so worried about the shame that comes with it. I feel that enough on my own. I don't need that energy from somebody else. But meeting children in my school who are newly diagnosed as diabetics and needing a safe adult to turn to was the reason why I decided it's not a secret anymore.
Yeah. And I mean,
wow.
It's so surprising to me. I would never think of it as something that would bring on shame.
I know, but I think
now I can share that with some of my medical conditions, that I have some underlying medical conditions. I talk about them openly on here because they're so relevant so often. In the rest of my life, I really don't, but it's because I don't want people putting attention on that. That's not what I want you to think of with me. And, even when I'm having a bad moment, don't send me your pity. Send me uplifting and positive thoughts.
Right.
I don't want your negative thoughts.
Yes. But in my head, what is being said when I say I'm diabetic out loud is, that's why you're fat. If you just ate better, I have all these horrible messages that I say to myself over and over again. So I'm working on
not having
that out of my head.
It's that voice in your head.
Did you listen to the episode where we gave our voice names?
No. Oh, wait. Yeah.
Saboteurs. Yeah.
Because everybody's got that voice,
Except, you know what? I found out my daughter doesn't. We think maybe she just doesn't recognize it as a voice.
Doesn't recognize it. Yeah.
But
she
was like, what are y'all talking about? The voice in your head. I was like, oh no.
Maybe, you know what? I remember one time driving my kids when they were little, and we lived real close to the high school, and we were complaining about the teenagers parking on our street and dumping their trash and complaining. And my little one, who is Caleb, he's probably like in kindergarten. He goes, "Mommy, are teenagers aliens?" And I was like, kind of, yeah, they are. Now that he is one, maybe it's they don't because they're aliens. They don't recognize that brain in their head yet. Or that voice in their head.
Well, you're right. And that's the thing as a parent that I say to myself all the time. And I so hope she doesn't listen to this. But, or maybe I can cut it out later. I don't know.
I don't think my kids listen.
I will. I just have to see, that was an alarm to check my blood sugar. I have to say to myself, remember, her brain is turned off right now. The part that I need reasoning from doesn't exist. So not for a while. So don't throw that shade to her, because her brain's working on something else, and it's not this decision making that I need her to have smartness about right now.
I'm gonna think about that.
That's a
good time too.
We need to write that down and put that on our desk. That part of her brain is not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there. And you know what's even weirder is I'm a big Grey's Anatomy fan. I've been watching all 18 years. They said it last night about their teenagers too, and I was like, it's true. Mm-hmm. That part of their brain is shut down, and so I think that I had to say it to myself last night because she said something and I was like,
it's not there yet. Nope.
Well, I think Cara Beth super lives EnVibe. I'm so excited. We've learned so much from you today.
Yeah. So much about you I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, there you go.
But I think this is so good. And I think it's just important for people to hear that. I mean, it's validating to know that we all have that voice that is not nice.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy and I gave ours names. Amy calls hers Meanie, and I call mine Lowly, like low. And I just
I'm going to be thinking about
because,
that.
Yeah, and it was, you give it a name, and then that way you can recognize it and tell it to, like, all right, you need to go back into timeout.
Mm-hmm.
And that's over in that closet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because
she needs a drawer big time. Right, because then it negates all the things where it's like, well, but you've lost 25 pounds and now you're going to yoga 3 times a week, and like she needs to hush.
Yeah, she needs to hush.
Yeah,
and it's like we often need to tell ourselves that we're beautiful inside and out, and I think that's important to tell.
Yeah, I don't have any trouble saying that to my kid or any child who walks in this room. You are loved, you are worthy,
awesome.
You're beautiful, you're awesome, you're capable of amazing things, but it's hard to say that to myself.
Yeah, I think that's for all of us. This is great.
I know. So I hope this inspires some of our other listeners. This is our first featured listener on our podcast.
Thank you.
We'd love to future conversations with other listeners out there. So if you're listening to this and think, I have a story to tell or some questions to ask on the podcast. Yes,
because I always have questions.
Yeah. Perfect. This
come
is
on,
great.
Send us a message or an email and come on. We'd love to hear from others and highlight some other
hear from
our
them too.
listeners.
Yeah, definitely.
And all join the conversations together.
And I like to hear what you got, what the listeners are doing to incorporate this sort of EnVibe lifestyle into their life. Like, I like that you're doing the yoga. I like that you have to, on Friday, be mindful of where you're going because your week has been drained. And, it's good to hear. And it's also good to hear that some weeks those things don't happen. And that's okay.
Well, and every day you just have to start over again. Like yesterday I made some sad choices. Tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's definitely one thing, but I go to your show notes all the time when I want to look up a book or browse the shop. I've done that before. I can't remember. There was a lady from San Antonio who I would say
chakra lady
was the woo-woo thing, but then I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then I loved it.
My Cheryl Russ.
Yeah.
Yes. And I started looking up so it's so funny that you brought her up and her products because I immediately started making a list.
Yeah.
Well,
she's
then
good.
That was meant to happen together.
She's good. Okay. She's good.
So you're seeing our soon to be naughty addition here.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Cara Beth, for coming on and joining us. And I have a feeling this is not our last conversation with you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy you did anytime.
This was great.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I feel like I know you already.
You do. I mean. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining our conversation today. For more information or to learn more about EnVibe Life, we hope you'll visit us at www.envibelife.com. You can find links and show notes for this episode on our podcast page. Please like, follow, and leave a review for our podcast. We hope that you will listen again soon.